and let love renew itself. Let everything that hath breath praise the Lord. Give us the power to fight those things we cannot see. Help us to call those things as though they were to be. Lord, see, I need you through these perilous times. Lord, help me stand. Don't leave me behind. Lord, I need you. Oh, Lord, in every way. To guide my life in the things I say. Lord, I need you. Oh, Lord, in every way. To guide my life in the things I say. So let the Spirit conquer the flesh and let love renew itself. Let everything that hath breath praise the Lord.
Well. Good afternoon. Hello, and how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
I cannot complain. I can't complain at all. God is good, as they say, all the time. Went to church today. Had a great 4th of July weekend.
Yeah,
How was yours?
it was pretty good. It was pretty good.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Well, since we greeted each other, it's time to greet the peoples. Good evening, good people, and welcome to Intellectual Radio, Voices of Change. It's two of us today. My name is Janice.
And I'm Elliot. Yeah,
You're Elliot?
that's always
I
they
kinda-
would not go for the rest. Okay, thanks very much.
And we will be your host this evening. For today's show, we have our news you can use segment, and we're going to have basically only a few major stories in there, but we are going to talk about the big, beautiful budget, and that's a little time consuming. We're going to discuss colorism in our community. We're going to highlight Ibrahim and discuss what we can do as a people to mitigate colorism in our communities. I want everyone that is signed on and listening and tuned in to give me a comment. Say hello to myself. Say hello to Elliot.
Yay.
Tell us how much you love Intellectual Radio.
Yeah.
Come on, do one of those
Do
things.
it.
Do it. I always start off with a scripture. For today, I thought about this scripture. It's from Matthew 16:26 out of NIV. And it says, what good will it be for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? It seems like we see that happening over and over. You still hitting that barbecue?
Just a little bit.
Oh, I'm jealous. I don't have any more.
That means you gave it all away.
I think I did. Anyway, it seems like that, I don't know, in this day and age, materialism has taken a front seat, and, exchanging your soul for other things, whatever that is that you seek. We're seeing it over and over again. For the news you can use segment, I'm going to start off with talking about the city of Chicago July 4th weekend violence. There was 109 people shot, 19 were killed over the extended 4th of July weekend. We all know about the 18 people that were shot and killed in a drive-by shooting outside the restaurant in the Chicago River North neighborhood late Wednesday. Then there was the Grand Crossing neighborhood where 2 women and an 8-year-old got killed. Then there was one by me in Columbus Park on Menard and Jackson where 2 people exchanged gunfire and 7 people were shot and 1 died. Then there was something also that happened at the University of Chicago at 57th and Cottage, right outside of there at that address, and 3 men were wounded in a drive-by, and there are just all sorts of things happening this weekend. That's just a snippet. Think about it. 109 people were shot and 19 were killed.
And didn't we
The mayor
talk about last week how they were talking about how homicides are down and everything?
Oh, that's what's so terrible.
Just last week.
Well, because homicides were significantly down, and they had a press conference, and it was, because I was saying it was 188 to date for the first. That's really good, but it's still got to continue going down. On the heels of that, started the very next Wednesday, right after that.
Just nice.
The mayor and Superintendent Snelling had a news conference and stated, "We are devastated by the recent violence that has left our city in a state of grief and extend heartfelt condolences to the family and communities impacted by these recent events." What do we do? What are we doing wrong? I've been having this conversation, for the past several days, about what can we do? What are we doing wrong? Is it in the parenting? Is it in this? Is it in that? Is it just, I don't want to say it's in the culture because it's embedded in what we do. What can we do?
I'm not sure. Well, I won't say I'm not sure we can do anything. I think it just takes a lot of strategizing, a lot of planning, a lot of thinking. It's just really disheartening to hear.
It makes our city, we always had this bad reputation about our city being such and such and violent and all that. And we were doing so well, the numbers were trending down like we talked about last week. And not only this city, but a lot of cities. And this weekend, they just went buck wild. I don't know what happened. In other news, what'd you say, free time?
Yeah, free time, it's holiday. The kids are out for the summer and, this, that, and the third. So it tends to be a little crazy, unfortunately.
At least 68 people have died in connection with the flash flood that struck Central Texas early Friday, according to officials. The toll includes at least 21 children in Kerr County, where 11 girls and 1 counselor are still missing from Camp Music Knowledge. The likelihood of finding survivors decreases as time passes. FEMA has been activated. I'm glad to hear that. In Texas, after President signed a major disaster declaration for the state. Now the weather agency is under scrutiny. The National Weather Service issued a slew of warnings ahead of the storm. But questions remain about how many people they really reached and whether vacancies at the agency's forecast office impacted the response, and if the chainsaw that Elon Musk used to gut the organization responsible for natural disaster early warnings contributed to the high body count. And I'm sure it did.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine now in the era of climate change, should I say, where storms are getting much more deadlier, storms are getting much more severe. I mean, all this is happening all around us, and now he decides to gut the NOAA, the organization that gives the early warnings, that works, with the weather system. I don't get it. I don't know. In other news, why don't you tell us about Sean Puffy Combs? Do you have that?
Yes, I have.
Didn't we talk about that last week too?
We did.
I know all these. Yeah, we did. We talked about that last week too.
Yeah. So Sean Diddy Combs has been denied bail and will remain in jail while awaiting sentencing for his federal trial, where he was found guilty on 2 counts of transportation and prostitution. for prostitution, excuse me, but dodged the more serious charges of sex trafficking and racketeering.
And what's kind of when he was going for his bond and they denied him.
Yeah.
What did you think about that? Were you surprised, or did you think? I thought they were gonna let him go.
Well, I think I wasn't surprised. Part of this is, how do I? Well, getting to the topic of what we're going to talk about. Part of this is, I'm always saying it's a black person, it's a black man, It's a black man.
Okay.
Okay. And if this were somebody well, we get the short end of the stick a lot. Secondly, you know, when you're talking about allegedly sex trafficking and racketeering and stuff like that, they're not gonna let you out. They're not gonna let you
Yeah,
out.
but think about that. Of all those 5 counts, they never proved the case on racketeering. They never proved case on RICO or any of those things. He just got something that was less serious. He'd been in jail for what, 9 months or so.
Mm,
Even murders, they give them the opportunity to go out on bail so they can take care of their business. Blah blah blah. He never had that.
but
Um,
I think just how do I want to say it? There's a different kind of reaction or a different kind of feel. They almost let you go. They almost let you get away with murder, if you will. They'll let you out for that. But when you're talking about prostitution, which can lead to other stuff and racketeering, all that, yeah, they don't take you lightly to that. So I'm not surprised they didn't let him out. And he's a celebrity. It was too much going on around him. Too many, just the fans were just everywhere. You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
I also think that I know Cassie. She was one of the main witnesses during the trial, and she went to the judge, and she told the judge that she's afraid for retribution because he may try to do something to her or whatever. I don't know if that had anything to do with it either, or I don't know if they just felt like because a lot of people were kind of ticked off because the main major charges he didn't get charged with. It was only the 2 minor ones, and they were kind of ticked off at that. So I don't know, maybe they just wanted to keep him in until he gets sentenced. Yeah, what he did was heinous. Yeah, what he did was horrible. He admitted to being a horrible guy, a woman beater, or this and that. I think he just hates women anyway. You know, I mean, any of the stuff that he did, Now he got a mad hate for women, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but hey, it is what it is. A lot of people don't think he hates women; they just think men act like that. I think when I heard about God, some of those lewd sexual acts and him bringing people in and wanting to see this and hey, come on. But that's not what he was in trial. What they were trying to get him for was racketeering. What they were trying to get him for was bound for transportation and prostitution because he brought his people over to do whatever he does, whatever. This is another one. All these stories are from last week. This is another one. The attorney for the family of Chicago police officer Christopher Rivera, who was fatally shot by her partner, Carlos Baker, said Wednesday that Baker, the partner that shot her, should have never been a police officer given a serious complaint made against him during his probationary period, and the death of Rivera should have never happened. The lawyer, Antonio Ramanucci, at a news conference on Wednesday, called for an independent investigation of the shooting, saying the Chicago Police Department narrative does not pass the test and asked the department to publicly release Baker's full disciplinary record, left the family with more questions and answers. They said, we have many questions that need to be answered, and we don't yet trust the narrative that Officer Rivera was shot and killed by a partner by mistake during a pursuit of suspects who never fired a shot. Romanuccio wrote Chicago Police Department Larry Snelling a letter on Friday requesting that he asked the Illinois State Police to conduct an independent criminal investigation into the shooting, and he released video, audio, and other evidence of the shooting. Now, on the street from the very beginning, they said this was something about this was really kind of, I don't know, kind of not right, because she had her vest on and everything.
There we go. And see, again, if they're talking about, hey, he should have been a cop to begin with, knowing that you have this stuff going on behind you already.
Right.
There's already issues that are coming up before you become a cop, and they put you up anyway. So there needs to be an investigation all the way up to the top as to where this thing started.
And that's why the family's saying that. The family's saying, wait, hold it. We're not quite buying this. So unfortunate. It even took them a long time to have her funeral after she passed.
Yeah.
I thought, I don't know. It felt like it was suspect. I don't know.
Mm.
Here's that. This is what I love talking about. Oh my gosh, the big, beautiful bill. The big, beautiful bill passed on July 4th, 2025, and it introduces sweeping changes that critics say would disproportionately harm Black Americans across multiple dimensions. Expanding ICE and border enforcement raises concerns which disproportionately impacts Black immigrant and multi-ethnic families. And a lot of people said during these marches and everything that we're not really showing up. But you got to think about it. Yeah, they're going to be all over them today. But we better keep our eyes open because it may be us tomorrow. The cuts to Medicaid, the bill proposes nearly $1 trillion in Medicaid cuts, including stricter eligibility rules and new co-payments. Black Americans make up 21% of Medicaid recipients. And I must say here, of all the big bills, we're not the only people that are losing out, obviously. We're only 21% of Medicaid, so there's 79% of other people. My focus is on the Black community, though. So these changes could lead to millions losing health context when they talk about worsening health disparities. These two communities are only 8 miles apart, Streeterville and Inglewood. 8 miles apart, but they have a life expectancy gap of 30 years. A child born in 2015 in Inglewood has a life expectancy of 60. A child born in Streeterville has a life expectancy of 90. Now, you're cutting out the Medicaid, so this gap is going to grow. It's scary already. It's going to really be scary now.
Yep.
Out of Des Moines, Iowa, Republican Senator Joni Ernst, I don't know if you ever heard of her. She was a real advocate for these Medicaid cuts. And she was at a meeting and she was met with shouts and groans when she said something horrific. But she was addressing potential changes to Medicaid eligibility at a town hall. And people were saying, wait, hold it. You can't do that because if you cut all that Medicaid, people got crime. Said, she said, we're all going to die. That was her response. It sounds almost sinister or demonic.
Yeah. It's real.
It's definitely real. SNAP food assistance funding for SNAP is slashed by hundreds of billions. Since Black households are sometimes likely to rely on SNAP, this could result in increased food insecurities. Again, the majority of SNAP recipients, as we know, are not Black because the majority of people are not Black. My focus is on the Black community. Tax favoring the wealthy, which overwhelmingly benefit wealthy, predominantly white households. This could widen the wealth gap, as Black Americans are less likely to own stocks or benefit from corporate tax rates. Let's put this in context. In Chicago metropolitan area, as far as the racial wealth gap, the median net worth for Black households, the median, so I'm not saying everybody has this, but when you average it out, the median is $0 compared to $210,000 for white households. So this gap is going to grow. Now, I was on the phone with someone and they said, yeah, but this is good for Social Security. Social Security is applauding this. It's going to be great. They're not going to tax it. Let's talk Social Security. The new senior bonus deduction, and its seniors age 65 and older can claim a $6,000 tax deduction on their income, including Social Security. Married couples can claim up to $12,000 if both are eligible. So this is all income, including Social Security. But the deduction applies to individuals earning up to $75,000 and couples earning up to $150,000. It phases out after that. According to the White House, 80% of Social Security beneficiaries, about 51.4 million people, will no longer owe federal income tax on their benefits. However, changes. And the wealthier seniors, the ones that make individually over 75 or as a couple over 150, they're excluded. This is not permanent. The deduction is temporary. It's only effective from 2025 through 2028. What it doesn't do, it doesn't totally eliminate Social Security benefits being taxed. People have been telling me, no, they're not going to tax any Social Security benefits. That's not true. Seniors under 65 or those with higher incomes do not qualify. The deduction applies to overall income. So if you work a part-time job. So while it's not a full repeal of Social Security taxation, it's a meaningful shift of millions for retirees living on fixed incomes. The Big Beautiful Bill delivers its biggest benefits to wealthier Americans, seniors with moderate incomes under that $75,000 or $150,000 threshold, and corporations, while offering limited or no relief to low-income families and marginalized communities. They're also talking about the middle-class workers, new deductions for tips and overtime pay, auto loan interest on U.S. assembled vehicles. These provisions were made to boost take-home pay. But who was really left behind? Low-income families, especially those relying on Medicaid, SNAP, or housing assistance, face deep cuts. Black and Latino communities who disproportionately rely on on social safety nets and student loans may also experience negative impacts. Environmental advocates warn that rollbacks on clean energy credits favor fossil fuel industries over climate conscious policies. In short, this bill is just a windfall for a setback for vulnerable populations. That's your big, beautiful bill. Oh, that's a lot. That is a lot. We just want to see how this is gonna. Wow, because it's going to have, and the implications are going to be broad. Yeah, just because they're saying yes, these targeted communities, they're going to be cutting this and cutting that. Now, you as a family person, you got 2 kids and you cut off. If you're not getting food, I'm not even talking about the medical. That to me is that is unbelievable. But if you're cut off from SNAP and you're not getting food, I think it's going to possibly cause, because if you don't eat, you're going to steal. And we don't have to have, what was the name of that show that Denzel Washington played on? And his son was going to get some kind of a major transplant. And what is the name of that show? Oh my God. It was a movie. And anyway, for whatever reason, he almost went Rambo. So I see people who may go in there and they say that they don't have Medicaid or they don't have something, and they get denied, I don't know, medication, they get denied services. I can see people on edge snapping because people are snapping already. This is going to have an effect that's going to extend beyond those targeted groups.
I think you're talking about John Q. I think that's the.
Is that's it? Oh, that's it. John Q. It was John Q. His son, right? He was having a heart transplant. Yes. Oh my. Okay, so even for people that have, I mean, a lot of people over the 30, 40, 50, 60, whatever age group, they have chronic illnesses. So they may have diabetes, they may have hypertension, they may have, these things are controllable with, proper diet, medication, whatever. But if you can't get the medication for diabetes, what's going to happen?
Right. And
like that one little stupid senator said, well, everybody dies. And she was so sinister with it. It's almost cult-like. Sometimes the people that are advocates for this bill and for other agendas, it's almost cult-like, even if it affects them negatively, because this isn't just something that's going to affect us. Believe
everybody.
So the topic today, we're going to talk about colorism. And colorism, we kind of touched on that last week. Remember that, Elliot, we talked about last week? And I thought about it.
Yes.
You know, you have to think about even what you do because it's so embedded. It's so embedded in our history. It's embedded in our psychology. It's embedded in our social. It's so embedded. You gotta kind of question yourself and say, am I wearing this with? Do I have hair on with blonde and different colors, different light colors? I mean, it does. It makes you question yourself. So, Elliot, you can kick it off with colorism.
All right. Colorism, the preferential treatment of people with lighter skin tones within a racial or ethnic group, has deeply impacted African Americans across the historical, social, and economic dimensions. Here's an overview of how it has affected the Black community in the U.S. Colorism talks about the preferential treatment of people with lighter skin tones within the racial community. Sorry, let me go down. First, talk about education. Education.
You would start with education.
Oh, yes. Start with
Yeah.
that's my passion. So
You're that person. Go ahead.
Education. And then we'll jump around.
Okay.
We'll start with education. Well, I guess I should be
No. You're an educator. So that's your baby.
Economics and educational disparities. So we start with that. Employment. Studies have found that lighter skinned African Americans are more likely to be hired, earn higher wages, and advance professionally compared to darker skinned peers with similar qualifications. For example, a 2006 study by economists at the University of Georgia found that employers preferred lighter skinned Black applicants or darker skinned ones, even when qualifications were equal. When we deal with education, lighter skinned African Americans have historically had greater access to educational institutions and resources. This is still reflected in disparities in school discipline and teacher perception.
Okay, so you're in the classroom, right? I guess.
Yes.
Do you see any of that happen? Now, is the school that you're at, is that majority Black or is that majority white? What's the demographics?
It's majority Black.
Okay. So do you see any of that? I'm just curious.
Not necessarily where I'm at.
Okay.
I can say no because we talk about music here. So music is a different thing because we really strive in the art of music to be I would say colorblind, but not colorblind, but not to let those be the things that bind us.
And it also makes a difference, I think, because you're in a majority Black school, I think.
Right.
Yeah, because I've seen when they talk about in employment, you see kind of disparities there where people that are lighter may be promoted quicker or favored, or particularly like in hotel management, they feel that they'd represent the establishment better. They feel more comfortable with them. You know what I mean? So I can kind of see that. But I love taking it back to history. When I think of slavery and Jim Crow, during slavery, lighter-skinned African Americans, because they were often children of the slave owners, were sometimes given privileged roles, such as working in the house rather than the field. This planted early seeds of color-based hierarchies. So you would think to yourself, if my kid is light, he's going to have life easier. He's going to be able to work in the house, and Blacks were more likely to be accepted into elite Black institutions, join social clubs, or access better educational opportunities. And you also saw this because, you think about the paper bag test and you think about those old movies. and you think about the movie, oh man, me and these movies, I'm not a movie girl. The movie where Imitation of Life,
Yeah.
where the little girl had a black people out of New Orleans and other places that are very fair skinned and can pass for white. It wasn't unusual for them to do so because they saw their path in their life being easier. So I mean that has an imprint on our brain when we see this over and over again. When you look at the social and psychological impact, colorism has led to an internalized anti-blackness, where lighter skin is subconsciously or consciously seen as more attractive or desirable, causing harm to those with darker complexions. Beauty standards goes as more beautiful, marketable, or relatable. Many darker skinned African Americans report greater experiences of exclusion, lower self-esteem, and identity-based trauma due to colorism. And even when you're a young girl and just say you're 17 or 18 and boys start liking the girls, and they always think, they used to call them red bones or, the high yellow girls. They always thought they were beautiful, even though when you look at them and you're like, she ain't pretty. But because they were light. Then it starts shifting to the point where us brown girls and us dark girls kind of was anti-yellow girls. So you saw these shifts, you know what I mean? So I see this as being the social and psychological impact is, and we talked about this last week when we talked about how when people were getting ready to, like when they got married or when they were picking their mates, and hey, marry him, he too dark. You got to think about your babies. And some people said, oh, I've never heard that. Maybe you haven't. But a lot of people have. Colorism is real.
I'll even go quick backstory or quick detour. I'll even go as far as if anybody the show or the play, the musical called Once on This Island, and it literally explores. It talks about colorism. It gives you a history. You had Islanders and you had the Bazones. The Bazones were the lighter skinned African Americans, or Africans rather.
Okay.
And Frenchmen, they were mixed with French, so they were light skinned. And you had the people that were on the island, and they were like my complexion. And so a darker skinned young lady fell in love with the Bazones. So but in the Bazone community, like he was already supposed to be married to somebody, so they already had an arranged marriage.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And he ended up coming to where she was, and he ended up getting hurt, and so she had the power to heal him. So he healed him, and they kind of fell in love. But he had to go back and marry his wife, and she was in love with him, and he married his wife.
He married
she died.
Wait, he married the light girl, right?
Yeah, he married the light girl because that was that community, right? They all like.
Yeah.
So he married her, and the darker skinned girl died of a broken heart.
Oh.
Because she loved him. And she knew that he loved her, but still, like, nope, I'm supposed to be with my people. I can't be with you. And it was colorism, it was classism, it was everything you could name in the show. And it was so deep to just watch it happen. So like, oh no, this is a real thing. They don't like you. The light skins don't like the dark skins because of where you're from and you're beneath us. And that's another part of colorism that we probably don't have time to dig into, but that's also plays a part, which goes back to we are now taught to hate ourselves.
That's it. And you touched on that. You touched on that last week about, your own self-perception, how you have to just love yourself and embrace yourself. And we're going to talk about that at the end, some of the things we can do to mitigate this colorism in our community, because it's embedded. And it touches all of us. Mm-hmm. It's embedded. And since you talked about a play, one of the interesting things it said was media and representation. casting and visibility. Light-skinned Black actors, musicians, public figures have often been given more visibility, more casting opportunities, and more media support. Music industry in genres like R&B and hip hop, colorism has influenced who gets signed, promoted, or in the 90s. All the girls were yellow. Seriously. And from
Yep.
what I understand, I don't know this for a fact, but from what I understand, some of the people who were casting them or some of the artists said that they wanted this type of girl. They wanted, a light girl. So now think about that. If you're dark and you've been working all your life to be a dancer or whatever, and you get to this point and they say, we don't want you, not because you don't have the talent, not because you're not good enough, but because you.
Yep. Yeah. This is what the term, you're pretty cute
my
for a
God.
Black girl or for a dark-skinned girl, which made, once we started hearing that, it really made me encourage my darker skinned people, and not to discourage those that were light skinned. Number one, I was always like, hey, all of you are beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I said, if you catch one of our darker skinned brothers or sisters with their head down because they think they don't look good, you are a beautiful chocolate person. Stop playing.
Yes.
You're a beautiful chocolate person.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let nobody take you different.
That is true. Even in dating and marriage, colorism affects perceptions of desirability. In dating, with lighter skin often associated with they put them on higher social status and attractiveness, impacts seen both within the Black community and in interracial contexts. And that's true.
So let's go back to that play. That's exactly what this was. Lighter skin is more attractive. It looks good. It's more presentable. And so you can be a high class Black person because you're light skinned.
Now gosh, that's true. That's true. But there is activism and there is pushback. Movements like Melanin Magic and Unapologetically Black have pushed back against colorist narratives, celebrating darker skin and Afrocentric beauty. Recent years have seen more diverse representation and dialogue, including creators, authors, and influencers addressing this colorism issue within our community head on. We just gotta keep doing that. Because even though, people think about colorism like that's something that happened a long time ago. No. It still exists today. Very prevalent today.
Yeah.
Now, what I was always questioning, I said, I kind of understood from a social, from a psychological, from a cultural, from a historical, why it was in the Black community in America. I always wondered, why was this in Africa? Why was colorism so prevalent? Not in all Africa. Let me preface that. In some parts of Africa. The preference for European features in parts of Africa, such as lighter skin, straighter hair, narrow facial features, is a complex result of colonial history, global media dominance, and internalized Eurocentrism. While not universal across the entire continent, this phenomenon is influenced by several interconnected factors. It's very similar to America, though, with colonialism, with, the colonists, the European colonial rule. They went in there and, the European cultural norms, language, education, religion, and beauty ideas were imposed and thought of as superior. So it's very much how we were kind of brainwashed here in the US. It was very much the same thing was done. The colonizers often privileged lighter skinned Africans or those with European ancestors, if they're mixed, creating an association between, again, whiteness and power, intelligence and desirability. So, somebody's digging. The Western beauty standards, global media, films, fashion, advertising has been dominated by European or Euro-American ideas of beauty. African women with lighter skin and straighter hair often, not all the time, are often more prominently featured in media, music videos, and advertisement. We don't have to talk about the skin lighting industry. I mean, any country that has more than two shades got a skin lightening industry. Africa included, India, some Latino communities and countries. Lightning skin lightening products are a multi-billion-dollar industry in Africa. Joyce is telling us we're going in and out. This reflects a demand driven, maybe because of storms. This reflects a demand driven by the belief that lighter skin is more attractive, professional, or socially advantageous. Joyce, since you're saying we're going in and out, let me know if it is any better. It's storming in some parts, so that may be why it's going in and out.
Yeah, it's clear on this end. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know, so how is Europe and America stole from African countries? Man, they've done land grabs, forced labor, wealth transfers. Now we have a new leader in town. We have a new hope in town. We have potentially a new Africa. Ibrahim Traore. I'm not saying his name right because this isn't spelled right. But anyway, Ibrahim, he's the president of Burkina Faso.
hmm
And he is definitely, this is a man that is changing everything. He's been in office since 2022, and he has made all these changes so far. Gold nationalization and refinement. Traore nationalized gold mines, inaugurated the country's first state-run refinery, and halted the export of unrefined oil, keeping the resources in his country of Burkina Faso. Debt-free in Western aid. He refused it. He cleared approximately 4.7 billion in external debt and rejected loans from the IMF and World Bank, asserting national control over policy. He spearheaded a mechanization drive, distributing tractors, motor pumps, motorcycles, and improved seeds. Crop yields have surged. Launched Burkina's first tomato processing and cotton processing factories, established pharmaceutical, dairy, cement facilities, and expanded airport and road networks. Opened the Postal Bank of Burkina Faso to reduce dependence on the CFA franc. He also encouraged use of the traditional Faso Danfani textiles, replaced colonial-era judicial attire, banned European wigs in courts, and dropped French as an official language. He increased the civil servant salaries. He increased it by 50%. He cut the ministers' pay, people in government, by 30 to 50%, and he launched housing projects, 1,000 plus social homes for internally displaced persons. He expelled French forces in broader realignment. He removed French troops and expelled Western military. He pivoted diplomatically toward Russia, Turkey, and China. He's the Alliance of Sahel States, AES. He formed the AES with Mali and Niger to strengthen regional defense and reduce reliance on Western systems. He recruited over 90,000 members into VDPs and created special rapid intervention brigades. He embraces the spirit of Thomas Sankara, who was the past president who was murdered. Um, he also enjoys significant grassroots backing, especially among youth and rural communities. His defiance of Western criticism, e.g., over gold reserves, has sparked solidarity, and he's having rallies worldwide. He is actually changing Africa, and he's retaining the resource within Africa and limiting the dependence on European countries. Traore presents a bold new model: economic nationalism, cultural decolonization, and Pan-African unity. His reforms span critical sectors of gold, agriculture, infrastructure, finance, social welfare, mirroring Sankara's transformative agenda. Yet his legacy is deeply contested. While admired by many across Africa and other countries, his tenure faces serious criticisms due to security deterioration and authoritarian governance. Since taking power in September of 2022, Burkina Faso's president, Ibrahim Traore, has reportedly survived at least 18 to 19 assassination attempts. And sooner or later, when someone is changing the face of Africa as such, and other countries are joining with them, and they're decreasing the dependence on these European countries, which is cutting into their resources, they're going to keep coming after him. We could
Yeah.
just pray for his covering. He's a young man, too, a young man.
Mm.
So now we're getting to the end of this, and you can start with it's at the very end. What can Black people do to mitigate the impact of colorisms? We always talk about the problem. We want to talk about solutions.
So there are three steps to focus on. We're focusing on awareness, healing, advocacy. There are more than three. Sorry. Awareness, healing, advocacy, and institutional change. So number one, we must acknowledge and educate. Name the problem. Start by openly acknowledging colorism as a real and harmful issue within the Black community and beyond. Teach history, very important. Understand the historical roots of colorism, from the preferential treatment of lighter skinned enslaved people to its ongoing effects in media, education, and employment. Raise awareness. Educate younger generations and community members about the origins and consequences of colorism so they can recognize and challenge it. Very important, because you're coming into generations that you don't hear colorism and they don't understand what it is, but for some people it's embedded in them and they don't know what it is. And so they're going around, being mistreating their fellow brother or sister who looks lighter than them. I
They
know
don't know
when
why. They don't understand why either. They're like, I don't know
right.
why.
When I was coming up, we didn't really hear too much about colorism, uh, and that was only because we were really focused on making sure that we knew our history as young black kids, and everybody was black. That was it. There was no, oh, you light skin, you dark skin. You didn't hear. If you heard about it, the teachers would put a stop to it very quickly. Like, no,
Really?
they're African American, just like you. I have a best friend who's light skinned, and I always tease him, and another friend of mine, I tease him when they start doing stuff. I'm like, oh, that's their light skin stuff. And,
Yeah, I do that too. Yes, yes.
and my best friend be like, yeah, I know I'm light skinned. I'm like, I can't stand you. We joke about it, but it is a thing. It really becomes an issue if you're not careful. As you're going on, number two, you're challenging internalized bias. Self-reflection. Examine personal beliefs and biases. Ask tough questions like, have I treated lighter skinned people differently? Or do I associate beauty or intelligence with a certain skin tone? You have to affirm all shades. Celebrate the diversity of Black skin tones and features through art, fashion, beauty, and storytelling. One thing I'm watching on the side is I'm binge watching This Is Us, and I'm very happy just to see a darker skinned person be at the forefront of what is happening. It's a white family that were expecting triplets, and they ended up with twins because one of the triplets passed away and they couldn't save it. And so at the hospital, they adopted somebody had just dropped off this little black boy about my complexion. And so this white family adopted him, and all of them are around the same age, and they've all grown up together. And I'm like, it's really great. You explore in the ongoing series if you've never seen it. They explore everybody's story. Yeah, I love it. They explore it. But it's good to see Sterling K. Brown. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, Sterling. You know what, though? You know what, Elliot? I think it's generational too, because you mentioned that you never really so much exposed all the time to this colorism thing. Well, when I was coming up, they had a little rhyme almost, and it said, "If you're black, get back. If you're brown, stick around. If you yellow, you mellow."
I've heard that in passing. We weren't allowed to do to say anything like that. Matter of fact, there are two teachers that come to mind. Who I'll call their names. It was Miss McNeil and Miss Terry.
Okay.
Miss McNeil is a little darker, but she's like fair skin. Miss Terry's a little bit lighter. But they were team teachers, and they were the most Afrocentric teachers you ever want to have in your life.
Alrighty then. Okay.
So they made an impact on the entire school, about knowing your history, knowing who you are as an African American person, and there was no such thing as colorism in this regard when it came
Which
to
is
the
beautiful. Which is beautiful.
yeah. So it
You're
was
very
about coming together. And we move forward. We're talking about empowerment through community. This is number 4. So mentorship, encourage mentorship programs where successful Black individuals of all skin tones uplift and guide younger generations, especially those who have felt marginalized because of colorism. Community healing spaces, organize discussions, healing circles, or workshops that focus on colorism, identity, and self-worth. Very important that you encourage everybody. You know, um, advocate for institutional change. Demand equity in media, education, and employment. You hold systems accountable. You support policies or organizations working to dismantle colorism, especially in schools, workplaces, and the justice system. Number 6, you celebrate African heritage and identity. You proclaim pride, emphasize African aesthetics, traditions, and achievements as sources of pride, not shame. And you reject Eurocentric standards, challenge narrow standards of beauty and professionalism that favor whiteness or proximity to whiteness. And I think that's a very big idea. Again, it goes back to what I've always said. We have to learn to love ourselves and have pride in ourselves and our history, who we are, what we have, what we've contributed to the world.
That's true.
We gotta love ourselves. We have to have pride in ourselves. We have to make ourselves feel good. If don't nobody else say that, we ought to be saying to ourselves that we look good, we feel good, we are good. We are America was built on our backs. Let's be real. Let's call it a thing.
Right. You
So
know
yeah,
what? And we have to also, really push corporations, company, and media to do it. Because as I reflect and think about it, when was the last time you've seen a family promoting anything? I don't know, toothpaste, a vacation, whatever, that were dark.
right.
I'm seeing a lot of interracial couples. I'm seeing
Mhm.
a lot of other, but I mean that are dark,
Yeah,
a dark mama, a dark daddy, and dark babies.
right. You haven't. You haven't. You haven't.
Nope. And as a final thought, because our time is just about up, colorism won't be dismantled overnight. It requires courage, honesty, and collective action. While individuals can start the work by unlearning bias and celebrating themselves, like Elliot said, systemic change will only come through consistent advocacy, education, and empowerment within and beyond the Black community. We can do this. We can break down the walls of colorism. We can break down the walls, unless you're joking.
Right.
Long as it is a joke and you're not, but
Right.
we can break these walls down. And I think something Elliot said, one of his teachers, if all of us had educators like that, wow, would that make a difference? Because she brought it to a head, she faced it head on, and she
Yeah.
said, it's not happening here. It's not happening.
She didn't. Neither one of them. We couldn't fight each other in that class. We couldn't talk about each other. We couldn't do anything that was derogatory to one another.
Which is
And
good.
yeah, because and you're talking about the '90s when it was just stuff everywhere, and they had those conversations like, do you know what's happening in our world right now? You see
Right.
this and third happening, and truth be told, we were kids, we didn't really know, but I very clearly remember conversations that were like, hey, you can't do that, and you can't say that, and you can't act that way because you're African American. We got both sides of the spectrum. You can't be like this because you're Black, and you can't fight each other because you're Black. It's enough of that going on.
Ooh, that's powerful. So
Yeah.
that's the kind of teacher you are, right? When you go to your students, that's the
Oh
kind of,
yeah. Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh definitely. Definitely. Like we don't play. You don't. We're not fighting in public. We're not acting up. We're not doing that. We walk out and we're gonna act like we belong in the room. We're gonna take up the space. We're gonna do what we do, And if you have a disagreement with your brother or your sister, you handle that in private. You don't do it in front of people,
Come
especially
on.
when in spaces. In music, we find ourselves where we are probably the only ones that look like us.
Yeah, absolutely. You're invited to
So
these places. Yeah,
that puts on a certain uh uh puts on a certain level of pressure for us to make sure that we are who we are. We're authentic to who we are, but we are just as good.
absolutely.
You know, we
Absolutely.
came here to do what we do, and when we walk into a room, we dominate the space, and so we don't have time to bicker with each other. We
Right.
hit.
Okay.
So yeah,
Thank you so much, Minister. Minister, sorry, I knew the hour could not go by without you preaching
I
and
was
giving.
hoping you would just act
I
right.
kn- I knew I'm acting right. This is real.
Oh
I knew
God.
it. And I am so glad you did. I'm so glad you did. So, this we only got 4 more minutes left on this. So we have to come back here next week and give some more nuggets and share with our listening audience. So we'll be on next Sunday at 6 o'clock. Same time, same station on Facebook Live. Elliot, you have any other nuggets to spread to the people listening?
Same thing I've been saying since last week. Love yourself, love each other,
Amen.
be good to one another. Have a blessed week. Make sure the week is good. You know, make sure that your heart and your spirit are right before you start to deal with other people.
Amen. Come on, minister. Come on, Minister Elliot. Amen. I amen to that. And everyone have a blessed week. And we will see you next week with more conversation on another topic. There's so many things going on right now. And, as the days unfold, who knows? Who knows what we'll be talking about? Because things are
Indeed.
just happening rapidly. And hopefully things will be improving. And
Yes.
we're going to be positive and think that they're going to be improving. So you guys have a good week and see you next week. Be good to yourself and be good to others. Make two people happy, two strangers. Smile at them, say something good to them, help them. Make two people happy this week. Take care. Signing off.